I rise today as a former mill worker who punched a time clock for over 29 years at the Great Northern Paper Company in East Millinocket, Maine. What I've seen firsthand is devastation that these free trade agreements can do to our communities. This agreement is the most economically significant since NAFTA, and its consequences for Americans' middle class will be enormous. Since NAFTA, we have lost more than 5 million manufacturing jobs, and we've seen more than 50,000 factories close in the last 10 years alone. The Korea FTA will bring more of the same. It will cost us more manufacturing jobs, it will shut down more factories, and it will ship more jobs overseas, all at a time of 9% unemployment, when the American middle class can least afford it. My colleagues have already highlighted the many reasons to oppose the Korea FTA, but I want to highlight two of those issues again. First, it does nothing to protect the U.S. in the face of Korea's currency manipulation. And second, this agreement isn't just a giveaway to Korea, it's also a giveaway to China. Korea has a history of manipulating its currency to boost its exports, once in 1988 and twice in 1989. The U.S. Treasury Department officially labeled Korea a currency manipulator. Even though the Treasury stopped officially identifying currency manipulators, in their February and May report of 2011, they stated explicitly, and I quote, "Korea should adopt a greater degree of exchange rate flexibility and less intervention," end of quote. The International Monetary Fund agrees. In August of this year, the IMF stated that the yuan was undervalued by 5 to 20%. The fact is, Korea manipulates its currency. Our own Treasury Department recognizes it, but the FTA does nothing to protect American businesses and workers from it. You only have to look at Mexico's 1994 devaluation of the peso to see how effectively an undervalued currency can wipe out an FTA's benefits. Our trade balance with Mexico has never been positive since. Without a provision to protect us from the yuan undervaluation, Korea's exports will continue to be cheaper than our own exports. This Korean advantage will wipe out the FTA's tariff benefits for American companies and cost American workers their jobs. Candidate Barack Obama recognized this threat, claiming that as president he would, and I quote, "insist that our trade deals include prohibition against illegal subsidy and currency manipulation," end of quote. But this FTA includes no such prohibition at all. And second, this agreement is not just good for Korea, it's great for China too. Today, we're actually voting on an FTA that will be an outright boon for China, its auto parts sector. The agreement's rules of origin requires that only 35% of the Korea content value be put from Korea or in the U.S. We have two FTAs with car-producing countries, NAFTA and the Australia FTA. In the Australia FTA, the content requirements are 50%, and in the NAFTA, the content requirements are 62.5%. Korea's car production in 2010 was almost equal to that of Canada and Mexico's combined, yet the Korea FTA contains requirements that are much lower than NAFTA. By allowing the 65% of a car content value to come from a third country, we're opening the door for that 65% to come from, guess who? China. As a result, these rules of origin will be devastating to American auto parts industry. The U.S. auto supply chain is already facing challenges from China. According to the Commerce Department 2010 report titled On the Road, China auto parts exports to the U.S. have increased 43% from 2004 to 2009, and they are expected to account for an increased share of the U.S. auto parts in the future. In fact, Commerce predicts that many auto part companies will continue to move production to China in an effort to reduce cost and remain competitive. If this FTA passes, that's not a prediction, that's a guarantee. I've already mentioned the fact that we have lost more than 50,000 factories since 2001. Before voting today, I urge you to imagine how many more factories will close if we were to pass this agreement, and to think about the devastation that will be brought to those towns when that happens. I oppose it because it will devastate our manufacturing sector at a time when we need to rebuild it. I oppose it because this president promised hope and change, not more of the same. I oppose it because in my hometown, unemployment is more than 28%. I oppose it because I want to create jobs in the United States, not South Korea, and definitely not in China. As a former mill worker from East Millinocket, and on behalf of America's middle class, I urge my colleagues to oppose the Korea FTA agreement.